All right, welcome everyone. Happy Photoshop Live Friday. Good afternoon. I keep making a new title for this every time I go live. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Adobe Creative Cloud. My name is Terry White. It's my pleasure to continue this new series I've started on Back to the Basics. So we're starting off with Back to the Basics in Photoshop. This is actually part two. If you missed part one, it is available on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel, which is where you're watching right now, most likely. You can just go ahead and search for it, Back to the Basics in Photoshop, and you can see part one. So I see some good folks in the room already. Hello, Evil Cerise. Hello, Freddie. Hello, Victoria. Hello, James. And names in Russian I cannot pronounce, but welcome everyone. D-Choice Productions in the house as well. Hello, and if I missed your name, I apologize, but hello. So we're going to continue today, and we're going to talk about tools. You know, it's kind of one of those things where when you're doing a multi-part Photoshop series, you could spend time on tools, you could spend time on layers, you could spend time on selections, you could spend time on the menu items, you could spend time on typography, you could spend time on masking, you can spend time on a bunch of different things. So it's just a matter of picking the order in which to go in. So I had the chat up from last week, and as I was getting ready to bring the new chat up, there was a person that says, hey, can you go over all the tools? And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go over all the tools, but it'd be nice to maybe do part two on the tools. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So that's what we're going to dive into. And Louise, happy to see you again as well. So let's go ahead and jump in to my computer where I've got Photoshop CC running. I've got a few images already open that will kind of give me some things to work on with the tools. And I've also, just so you know where I am and you can be in the same place, in the upper right-hand corner here, I've gone in and chosen the Essentials workspace. So that is that menu item all the way in the upper right corner, the second one or the middle one that looks like a little box with a menu in it. That is your workspace menu, and I'm in the Essentials workspace. And by switching to the Essentials workspace, that also resets the tool panel back to the Essential tools. So that way, we're looking at the same tools versus my custom tool panel, which has some of these tools and some of these tools it doesn't. Now, like I said, we could spend several minutes on each one that we won't have time for. So what I decided to do today is concentrate on the tools I think you'll need to know how to use. In other words, the ones you'll use the most, as opposed to some tools that have been in Photoshop for years that are either rarely used or, in many cases, just not used anymore. So we will talk about it later on in the series of how to even customize the tool panel just to the ones you need or just to the ones you use on a regular basis, as I've done. But for today, we're just going to talk about the basics, the ones that I think you will need to know how to use. Now, I don't know if that will fill the hour. I don't know if it'll take longer than an hour. We're going to try and keep this to an hour or less. And if I feel like I'm running out of time, I will hurry up and finish. All right, so with that said, and it's 2:32. It's 2:32 a.m. here. Ooh, you're up in the wee hours of the morning. All right, so let's start at the top. Let's start with the Move tool. The Move tool, this tool in the upper left corner, is really designed for moving objects on a Photoshop image. So for example, if you only have the image and you try and use the Move tool, you're going to get this warning. You're going to get this, hey, you really can't move this because it's your background. You can convert it to a layer and move it if you want to, which is better than the dialog box it used to give, which is you just can't do anything. But it's really for moving additional objects, or if you want to convert this to a layer and move it around, you can as well. I don't really see a whole lot of use of moving the background, but you can. So what that means is that if I were to bring over another image, let's just say this image of this cool guy right here, if I were to bring this image over and I were to go ahead and scale it down a bit and commit to it, now the Move tool lets me move that around. That's really what it means. Let you move something that can be moved around. If I were to grab the Type tool and I were to click the words or type the word Friday, and we give Friday a better color that's easier to see. like a nice red. And I were to click OK on that or commit to that. Now the move tool moves the word Friday around. Now, here's another thing, and this is I'm glad I'm doing this because normally your move tool will move only the current layer. In other words, I'm on the current layer, which is the text that says Friday. I can move that around all day long. But if I say, oh, now I want to move him down a little bit and I click to move, it's still moving Friday. That could either be a good thing or a bad thing. It could be frustrating or it could be great, because the great part of it is you know that you're only moving the current layer, no matter what you click on. So I don't even have to click on that layer and I'm moving, or I don't have to click on that object and I'm moving Friday, because by default, it moves whatever layer. If we go to our layers panel, it moves the Friday layer, no matter what. If I click on this guy layer, we didn't call him, here we can go ahead and call it cool guy. If I click on the cool guy layer, now I'm moving the cool guy. I'm not moving Friday. So I'm moving this all day long. Even if I click on the word Friday, it's still moving that guy because that's the layer that's currently selected. And of course, if I go back to the background, I'm going to get that warning saying, oh, in this case, it's just saying it can't be moved because it's locked. So it's whatever layer is selected, that's the layer the move tool will move. Now, with that said, there is one caveat. There is one option that I used to use. I don't use it nearly as much as I used before, but I still use it. Cheryl Harwart, how are you? Hello in Florida. And Evil Cerise, thank you for your continued help. All right, you notice in the upper left-hand corner, there's this auto select option. I really like auto select in times where I'm trying to move a bunch of things and I don't want to have to keep clicking on their layers to do it. Like I'm moving the type over, and I'm moving the image over, and I'm moving the type over again, I'm moving the image, where I'm moving a lot of things, and I don't want to have to keep going back and forth to the layers panel. If you check this box, what that will do is now it looks for what it thinks you're trying to click on. So if I click on his face, it moves him around. If I'm careful and I click on the word Friday, it moves Friday around, because it's saying wherever you pinpoint that pointer, that must be what you're trying to move, as opposed to I'm only going to move what layer you're on. So again, click on him. I can move him down to the lower left corner. Click on the word Friday. I can move the word Friday up to the upper left corner. I don't have to worry about which layer I'm on. It will auto select the layer. So good for those times where you want it to do that. Bad when you're trying to move something that's small, that's hard to click on. Then it's just easier to turn that off and select the layer, because now you know it's only going to move that object and nothing else. So that's the move tool and auto select. And you can turn auto select on and off whenever you want. All right, so now let's get rid of, we don't really need those layers anymore. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's talk about, there are always multiple ways to do it. So if you use the control key for that, that's great that you've got that tip, but keep in mind, back to the basics, people that are just getting started. So if you're an expert and you're using Photoshop every day and you've got all these shortcuts, awesome. That's not what this is about. All right, so let's move on. Let's switch over to the,
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Alexa. Let's switch over to the next tool, which is the selection tool. Now, the marquee selection. There are multiple selection tools in this category. So for example, when I mentioned before that you could have multiple tools, just like there are multiple tools, actually underneath there's the artboard tool as well, which we'll get to that. We'll get to that maybe today, maybe not. But anyway, the selection tool has multiple tools under it: rectangular marquee, elliptical marquee, single row, single column. So let's talk about the elliptical or the rectangular marquee tool first. This tool, as its shape implies, it's for making rectangular selections. So if I were trying to select, let's say, part of the sky, because it's really not fair to say the sky because there's a non-rectangular edge at the bottom. But if I were trying to select the majority of the top of the sky, I could start in the upper left corner. Now keep in mind, I'm going to get that cell tower or whatever that is. And if I come over here, now that area is selected. I can do whatever I want, and I can do it only in that area. So as we mentioned before, when you have a selection made and you go to do something like paint, It will not paint outside of that area. I'm dragging all the way down. I'm down here in the water. It will not paint outside of that selection. So that's why that's one of the reasons why we make selections in the first place. Okay. What's another use for this? Well, when you need to select things that are easier to select as rectangles. So I don't really have a great example here. Yeah, those are pretty much not going to be good rectangular shapes. So let me find you a better thing to select. No, that's not going to work either. Let me find you something better to select that would use rectangles. Like this dark forest. All right, so that's not gonna, yeah, okay. So let's say in this dark forest, I want to select this right tree over here. Again, I probably wouldn't use this tool, but just to show you how this would work, I could start maybe on the edge of it and select the tree. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. The tree is not a perfect rectangle, so it's just not gonna do a great job there. But it's, again, for selecting rectangular or square shapes. When I say square, that means that if I hold down my shift key, it will constrain it to a perfect square. So it will not allow me to make a selection that's not square. If I hold down my Option or Alt key, it does it from the center out. So again, let me, you know what, I'm gonna cheat. Let's just do this. Let's find things that have some squares in them, like boxes. Oh yeah, this would be a great one. All right, someone just got sold an image to me on Adobe Stock because I needed a better example. How about that? All right, let that one sink, and let's open it up. Okay, here we go. This is better. All right, so if I need to select one of these boxes or part of one of these boxes, I can grab the rectangular marquee tool and just drag it out and get a nice square selection. That's what it's for. Now, with that selected, or anything selected, I should say that and make that very clear. Anything is selected, you can always add to the selection. So let's say I needed that box, and this box. I could hold down the Shift key, which is always add to your selection, like so. And that will not deselect. It will keep the first one selected and add the second one. If I didn't hold down the Shift key, it would say, oh, you don't want the first one selected anymore. You now want this one selected. And just like now, if I want the third one and I don't hold down the Shift key, it will only select the third one. But if I hold down the Shift key, it will select all three. So that is what this is for. Now, there are times where you will use this to combine selections. So for example, maybe I want these top two boxes selected, and I'm just going to basically, where they're touching, I don't want there to be a gap. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and literally drag the selection into the other selection. See how I'm overlapping? And all that's going to do is tell it with the Shift key held down, join them together. Don't leave a gap there. Join the selection. Same thing over here. If I kind of want the top of that box selected, Shift key, and now I'm adding to it. And now I'm going to say, yep, add that part. We'll get to the corner in a minute. So I can go in with these tools and add to my selection. If I ever want to subtract from a selection, that would be the Option or Alt key. So for example, if I hold down the Option or Alt key and I say, you know what, I would really like to cut this selection off at the bottom, and I do something like that, I'm now telling it, don't select that part that I'm now encompassing inside the selection because I'm holding down the Option or Alt key to deselect part of it. So I'm going to leave this selected for a minute. I'm going to switch over to the soccer ball because the soccer ball will help me with the next one. So the rectangular marquee, we use that a lot. Elliptical marquee, you use that a lot as well for things that you need to select that are ellipses. Now, the problem with doing a selection like this, if I were trying to select that whole ball, this probably isn't the best tool for it. But let's say I was trying to use this tool. I have a choice. I can either try and find the corner, the intersection where those two meet, and it might be easier to cheat and use a guide. I brought up the rulers, Command R on Mac, PC Control R, And if I now do that, I cheated. I found the intersection where I can do a better selection around the whole ball. Not a perfect selection because the whole ball is not perfectly round in this photo. But you see what I mean? I needed to find that imaginary intersection where the lines would meet so I can start my selection there. So you either need that or you need to know where the center is so you can select it from the center out. So if I were to try and select it from the center, I'd be guessing, but let's say that I think that's the center. I can hold down my Option key, and when I hold down my Option or Alt key, remember that tells it to select out from the center. And even if I didn't nail the center just right, I can at least get the size just right, or as close as I can. I would say right about there. And once a selection is made, you can move the selection with a selection tool. So as long as I'm still in a selection tool, I can pick that selection up and move it around and get the selection I was really trying to get. So all I did was, here, let me undo that. All I did was, I'm still on the marquee, the elliptical marquee tool. I can just pick up this selection by pointing in the middle of it and drag it over, and it snapped right to the object. Now, in the case where it did not get it all here, we're going to talk about that in just a second as well. It didn't get it all up here as well. There are ways to add to your selection in a non-geometric shape way, and we're going to do that next. So there are other tools. There's the single row marquee and the single column marquee. I never, ever, 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 ever use those, maybe once every 10 years. I'm not going to talk about them today because this is about the tools you'll actually need and use. All right, so let's jump down to the lasso. You have multiple lasso tools. You have the lasso, polygonal lasso, and magnetic lasso. Let's talk about the first one. The first one, let's go back to the boxes. Let's say I now want to get that corner. So I'm going to zoom in, and I want to add to the selection in the shape of this corner. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key because that's always add. When I hold down the Shift key, that will let me start here. And depending on how good I am, drag. And as long as I circle it, it will add that part to the selection. So same thing over here on this side. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to move that. I meant to move it over that way. Shift key, and I can also see how bad of a selection I did the first time. So I have to draw that whole circle around it. If I just draw a straight line, it won't do anything. So I'm encompassing that whole missing area as part of my selection. And you can, of course, do it the opposite. So if you said, hey, this box isn't perfectly straight, hold down the Option key and I can say, actually, I don't want to do it that way. I can say, don't select this part of it. And see what it did? It snapped it over. It says, oh, you want to cut that part of the selection out? You can. Same thing up here. Holding down the Option key. And I'm still using my mouse. I'm not even using my stylus to try and make that straighter. It would be easier to make that straighter using the other tool. So even though you started with one tool, that doesn't mean you can't finish with another. So hold down my Option key with the rectangular marquee tool. That way I can get that perfectly straight line and say, you know what? It'd be nice if you cut that part off. Same thing over here. This top part over here looks like I cut it. I didn't cut it in close enough. Hold down my Option or Alt key to deselect that part and bring it in. So Shift always adds. Option or Alt always subtracts. Doesn't matter which tool, they all work the same way with both of those keys held down. So I can use the lasso and circle something with the Shift key to add to it. I can use the lasso with the Option or Alt key, circle something to subtract from it. I can add or subtract with the other tools as well. So if we go back to that soccer ball or football, depending on the country you're from, we can go in and same thing. I can say, oh man, I wish I'd gotten more of the outer part of that little cushion there. So if I'm good with my hand, I can say, hold down the Shift key. And even though I didn't do it perfectly, circle it. I got it close, and then I can hold down the Option key to fix it. Or if I'm better with the ellipse tool, I can use the ellipse tool to fix it. Whatever way you think works best for you. That all looks good. Now, same thing here, not close enough. So I'm going to hold down the Option key to subtract because I want to subtract part of this. And doing a not so great job starting out, but a better job getting closer. And then going all the way around to subtract that out. Let's do it again up here. So Shift always adds, Option or Alt always subtracts. And you can use any tool to add or subtract, any selection tool that is. So same thing here, I want to add this, hold down the Shift key. Ooh, that was bad, that's all bad. But I can ooh, that's bad. Horrible, horrible hand. Let's add that in, now let's fix it. Option to subtract that out, and I have to close the circle. So, or at least overlap the circle. There we go. So, those are the first few selection tools that you'll use. Now, what about the other lassos? Aren't there better lassos than that? There absolutely are. So let's go back to the variety of packages. And let's zoom out a bit. And let's deselect. Let's Command D, Control D on Windows to deselect. Let's switch to one of the other lasso tools. Let's switch to the polygonal lasso tool. I use this one all the time because it makes quick work of things like this, where I kind of want to select these boxes, not their shadows, and I want to make sure that I don't have to do a lot of adding and subtracting. I just want to get it right the first time. So what this tool does is you click or tap, click where you want to start, and notice it has a line that basically extends from it. So that's what it means by polygonal. So now I can go ahead and click where I want to end, and then click down here where I want to continue. Oops, I didn't continue in the right spot. I'd have to move that up actually. There we go. Good. And because it's drawing these perfectly straight lines, it's going to set me up for success for selecting objects like this that are perfectly straight. And this is one of those tools where you do have to go all the way back to where you started to complete the selection. Once you click back on your starting point, your selection will be never realized there was a column selection tool and never needed it. I think since Photoshop users, yeah, again, that's why I said those, we're not going to talk about those because those tools have been around for years and are very, very rarely used. All right, so that's the polygonal lasso tool. So what's the magnetic lasso tool? Polygonal I use all the time. Lasso I use sometimes. Magnetic I use sometimes. It's worth showing. So what this tool tries to do is it tries to figure out where you're going. So I'm not clicking. I'm just moving my mouse and it's guessing where to snap next. So as I'm just dragging it, I'm not holding down any keys. It's magnetically trying to figure out where it should go, what it should do as I work my way around this shape. And the frustrating part is, and by the way, you can click to kind of force it to go somewhere where you want it to go. So if so like for example, I don't want it to go there. I can click and kind of get it the way I want. It's okay. It's not a tool I use that often for the reasons of it's not that perfect. It's not that accurate, but it can be used in certain situations where you want it. You want to make something select quickly, and it's a nice contrasted image. Oops, I didn't mean to double click. A nice contrasted image where it can distinguish between the lines and make your selection where you want it to go. So it can be a useful tool. It's not one I use all the time, but it can be. And I'm just dragging, not clicking anything until I get back to the beginning. Then I click and it makes my selection. So those are your lasso tools. Lasso, polygonal, magnetic. Now let's switch to a tool I use more than any of the other ones, Quick Select. Quick Select, like the name implies, is for making quick selections. I didn't say accurate select. I didn't say perfect select. I said quick select because that's what Quick Select's mission is. It's for making selections quickly, not necessarily the most accurate. So let's say I'm trying to select her hat. Well, I could try and lasso around it. I can try and use shapes and combine it together. I can try and do those things, but it's not one defined shape, so it would take a lot of work and multiple selections to try and get that. So what I could do instead is just take this tool. It is like a brush, so you can make your brush size bigger or smaller. I'm using the right and left bracket keys. You can also do it from the menu. You can just use the slider to slide the size of the brush. Once you get your brush size, you can just simply drag and it will auto-magically make your selection based on where you drag. And so that selected her entire hat without me doing very much. I just drug it in the areas and it kind of figured out what I was trying to do. So now if I were to duplicate that onto its own layer with a Command J or PC Control J, I see I missed a spot. So let me undo that. I wasn't really paying attention to the selection. So let me try, I see where I missed it. So I can just add that back in and now Command J. And there's that. So Quick Select is just that. It's quick. It needs contrast. So it needs, like if she was wearing a black shirt on a black background, not going to be that effective because it can't tell the difference. But on a contrasted image, beige straw hat on a dark background, easy selection for it. Let's say I just wanted, let's turn that layer off, go back to the original. Let's say I just wanted the blue ribbon. I don't want anything else. I want the blue band around the hat. I'll make my brush a little smaller and I'll just simply, and it got it in one click that time. I didn't have to drag it. So that's what it's good for. Now, where did Quick Select come from? Quick Select actually evolved from another tool, the tool that's underneath it, the magic wand. Some like to refer to it as the tragic wand because it just wasn't that good back in the day. But that's where this technology started from, was the magic wand was the tool we used to do stuff like this. It wasn't as good, so they developed Quick Select to be even better. So let me show you how the magic wand works on, let's get something else here. I'm going to use that stuff later. Let's go back to, just trying to find you a good example. Okay, yeah, there's good contrast in their clothes here. All right, so let's say I'm trying to select her blue sweater, blouse, whatever that is. The magic wand is literally based on colors that are the same that touch each other. So in other words, this is all blue, right? Should be easy. So if I click one time anywhere on the sweater, oh wait, there's more blue. Well, you got to remember this tool is based on a tolerance setting. Right now my tolerance is, I changed it last time I used it down to 10. Let's deselect and put it back on its default, which is 32. When you first use this tool, it's set to 32. Let's try it now. Yeah, got more. Didn't get it all. And this is the frustration that we used to go through with the magic wand. Because if the colors aren't close enough, it doesn't think they should be selected. So you can keep increasing the tolerance to tell it to be more tolerable of the color differences, or you could hold down the Shift key and click again, 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 click again, click again, and click again. Now you know why we didn't really love this tool for stuff like this, unless, let's deselect, let's try higher tolerance. Let's try 60. And click. See? And then, okay, let's try 80. And click. It takes time and you have to keep changing the number and eventually you'll get what you want. And this is why we don't use this tool very much anymore, because Quick Select's just so much faster at it, so much better. So if I deselect that and switch back to Quick Select, and it doesn't have a tolerance setting, it just works. I'll make my brush a little bit bigger and I'll just drag. It already got most of it. I just click again, boom, done. That's what quick select does versus, did I get that down there? Yeah, versus the magic wand. So the magic wand, still useful in those rare situations where you need it. But the quick select's much better. So same thing over here, click, click, done. Much, much faster than trying to use the tool, trying to use the magic wand. All right. Now, you might be saying, well, hey, it didn't really do a good job around her hair. And if I were to go up here and try and select her, it's really not going to do a good job around hair because that's not what this tool is designed for. This tool is for making hard edge selections. We'll get into a whole lesson on doing selections where we will talk about select subject and select and mask for when you do have hair that you need selected. This is for selecting hard-edged objects like the sweaters, but not hair. All right, let's move on. Crop. So the crop tool, one of the most used tools inside of Photoshop. And I'm going to spend a few seconds on it because there's a lot to cover here. Let me go back to the default settings and clear that and try it now. Okay. When you first use the crop tool, it's set to ratio with no numbers in it. So it basically selects the entire image and you can crop any way you want. There's one checkbox you absolutely need to know, and that is the delete cropped pixels checkbox. The reason for this particular one is because this is what's going to make this destructive versus non-destructive. If I leave this unchecked, that means the crop is not permanent. It's not throwing away that data. I can always come back to the crop tool and uncrop. If I check the box, I'm saying I don't ever want those pixels. I want my image to actually get smaller, and I want you to throw away that data that's outside the crop. So it's up to you. ContentAware is also very cool. I'll show you that hopefully in a few seconds. All right, so what does crop do? Basically, you have two ways to use it. You can either use the handles, so I can just say, hey, I want to crop to just her and make it look like she's talking to herself. There she is. And once I click crop, then that's it. Now I'm using just that much of the image and that much of the canvas. The rest of those pixels are still there because I did not say delete. So if I go back to the crop tool and I uncrop, oh, there she is. She didn't go away because I did not say delete pixels. Now, the other way to use the crop tool, like I said, when you first click on it, you're going to get those handles around it. The other way, you notice that there's an actual tool. The old-fashioned way we used to use it is actually to just drag the area as a selection that you want to crop. And you can still adjust it. You can still say, I'm still showing a little bit too much of the book on the sweater. Let's pull it in a little bit. Let's move it down a little bit. And let's get the image we want. And that would give us the image we want once we click the commit button or hit enter on the keyboard. So two ways to use it, just using the handles or simply dragging your crop just like a selection around the area you want might be faster. All right, let's undo the crop one more time. And now let's talk about some of the other very cool options. Number one, if you need a specific aspect ratio, like let's say I'm going to use this in a video, like I'm going to use this frame in a video. Well, video is standard video now is 16:9 aspect ratio. Or if I want to print this as a 5:7 or 8:10 or 10:8 or 7:5. Then you have all these different aspect ratios that are built in. So if I come down here and I say 16:9, it's going to constrain that to be 16:9. So what this is saying, I'm good with the width, but you're going to lose your top and bottom. It's up to you. So you can literally move the image around or move the crop around, whichever way you like to look at it. And you can say, hey, I need the book, or hey, I don't care about the book. I want the top of her head. That's pretty much going to be your choices before Photoshop CC. Now you have some additional choices we'll talk about. So cropping to a specific aspect ratio, very handy when you need that aspect ratio. So now that would fit perfectly in a video as is, no more adjustments would be needed to be made. All right, let's clear that and let's undo it. And now let's talk about reverse cropping. Yeah, reverse cropping. So let's grab the crop tool. And let's say that I'm going to add some some more text at the top of this image, and I need more room. Well, I don't want to make the image smaller. I actually want to make more space above it. So you can drag the crop handles in the opposite direction. So I'm dragging away from the image, and that will create that empty space. It will create that empty space for me to do whatever I want. And if that's all you want, it was empty space, away you go, you're all set. But if you kind of wanted it to look like the trees or foliage behind them, that would take some work. So let me undo that. And let's talk about this new option called ContentAware. ContentAware crop is just as the name implies. If you're new to Photoshop basics, ContentAware is what Photoshop is trying. Can you change the guidelines inside the crop? Yes, let me get to that in a second. So ContentAware is Adobe's Photoshop technology that fills in the missing pieces based on the surrounding image. So some cases it works awesome. Some cases it doesn't work so awesome because it depends on what it has to work with. So if I turn on ContentAware and I were to click back on this image and I were to drag it up, and I let go, it's going to take a few seconds when I click OK because it has to generate the missing area. And again, like I said, depending on the surrounding area. So in this case, it said, oh, well, I don't know what hair and a head is. I'm going to duplicate that in the upper right corner. Now we can fix that. That's easy enough to fix. But look at the rest of the image, how great of a job it did on getting that duplicated above or out to the sides or whatever, adding more. So if you look at the image, let's undo that for a second. If I were trying to add more to the side, I'd be more successful on the left side, the side with the blue, because she's not on the edge of it. On the right side, her shoulder's touching the edge. So there's nothing for Photoshop. It doesn't know what the rest of her shoulder should look like. So it's going to do a really bad job if I try and add it on the right side. But on the left side, if I were to click with ContentAware turned on, and I would drag over some more and click OK, it's going to try and figure out what the left side should look like, and it worked. So if it has enough area to work with, it will replicate that area into the missing crop. So let's undo that one more time. I told you, two things. Let's fix the problem I had before where it grabbed some of her head and put it up there as well. Just going to show you how to fix that in case you do get that situation. Now, since we're doing this all on one layer, it's not a big deal. We can just simply go in. I'm going to jump ahead and use the patch tool. The patch tool is one of the tools we were going to talk about anyway, but the patch tool is for situations just like this, where I need to patch out an area using the area that's already here. So I'm just going to go ahead and patch. Let's see if we can do it that way. There it is. Perfect. So I just basically made my selection with the patch tool and moved it to an area that I wanted to pick up from and replace. Patch tool is awesome for stuff like that. Okay. Let's undo. Put it back to the way it was. Now let's talk about, well, let me answer his question first. Go back to the crop tool real quick. Letter C on the keyboard. He asked, could you change the lines inside the crop? And yes, you can. You have all of these different options for turning them off, never showing them, or different grids or whatever you want to use. So I can use diagonals. I can say don't show any lines. I can use the golden ratio. I like the rule of thirds, so that's what I usually keep it on, but you have your choices there. You can't customize it, but you have your choices. All right. What is the best way? Oh, okay. So Kasar Ahmad is asking a very important question, and it's related to this. He's asking, what's the best way to make an image a different size? And cropping and sizing are kind of related. So let me do one more thing, and I'll answer that question. So let me get out of this. Let me find an image that I don't know that I'm going to, I know I probably have one somewhere. Let me see if I can open it real quick. Let me see if I can find it. What I'm looking for is an image that isn't perfectly straight. Oh yeah, one of these would work perfectly. Oh yeah, that's great. All right. So when you're shooting landscapes, people tend to be distracted when the landscape itself is crooked. When they look out of the horizon, it's crooked. So let me open this. So one of the things we can do is use crop to straighten it. So we're on the crop tool right now, and there's two ways we can do it. We can either just rotate the crop. I'm just dragging outside the handles, and I get this nice little grid that pops up to show me what it's going to look like. So I could do it that way, or, and by the way, that would work better because that's going to give me the content aware. So if I were to click OK, wait a few seconds, it's going to fill in all that missing space around the edge. When it rotates it, oh, it's already done. All right, and that would be it. So that's one way, or undo. And my other favorite way before content-aware crop was this. There's an actual straighten tool. Lex, I'm glad you're liking the explanations. So the straighten tool is my favorite way to do this before content-aware crop because it's the easiest. It says, tell me what should be straight, and I'll straighten it for you. I'll figure it out and straighten the image for you. So I'm looking at that line of the mountain touching the water, and I'm saying, well, that line should be straight. So all I have to do is drag along that line. Oh, hang on. Hold on, sorry. Deselect, undo, click the straighten tool first. There we go. Click the straighten tool first, drag along that line, and yeah, so I'm telling Photoshop, this should be straight. Fix it based on that, and it'll just rotate based on that. And now you can do your content aware. So that way, I know it's perfectly straight because it's mathematically straight. It may not look right because on the right side now it looks like it's leaning down too much, but I know that line's perfectly straight. So this might be where you kind of cut or split the difference and rotate it a little bit more to the left. But that's what the crop tool does. Now, back to the question of what if I need to make this a different size? You have two ways to do that. You can either use the crop to actually change the size of things. So if I go to crop and I say, hey, I want to use width, height, instead of just ratio, I want to use width, height, and resolution. So I can say that I want this to be, I want to make a crop that's going to make this 19, or here, no, let's do 2160 pixels by 1920, 1080. No, actually, that would be higher. I want 3840 pixels by 2160 pixels. So I'm making a 16 by 9 4K image. Now, if I choose the resolution, in addition to that, I'm either sizing it up or down from its original size. So if I say, and I need this to be 300 pixels per inch, when I click OK, it made that image bigger. Now, that is not the best way to go bigger. That's the best way to go smaller. If you really want to make your image bigger, it's better to use the image size that's built into Photoshop because it does a much better job. It's got a better algorithm. So let me undo that. If I go to image size, and then I can crop it all I want after I make it bigger. So if I go to image size to answer his question, image size has an automatic feature. So if you just put it on automatic, it will make the best judgment. But if you want to use the new algorithm and guarantee it, meaning you're using the new one, preserve details enlargement is going to give you the best quality that it can give you. Now, if you're trying to take a postage stamp and make it the size of a bus or billboard, it's not going to look great. I don't care what algorithm we use. So keep that in mind. Your results may vary depending on how small of the thing is that you're trying to make big. If I'm trying to make my driver's license picture big enough to print on a 30 by 40, not going to look great. But if I'm trying to make something that's decent quality, bigger, going to work awesome. All right, so let's say that I want to make this 600 DPI instead of 300. So I'm basically doubling it. And I click OK. Yeah, it looks good. Is it perfect? No, because you're making up pixels along the way. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. In this case, image size is going to be the best way to make something bigger. Okay, back to the tools. All right, so I think we beat the crop tool to death. There is one more thing that's a perspective crop that I use. I don't use the slice tools. These are for web work. I don't do that anymore in Photoshop, but perspective crop is another crop tool for adjusting the perspective of images. So let me show you how that one works. It's really cool, actually. And let me find the image. It's probably in my tips and tricks area. Tips and tricks. It is, do I have that door? I have a doorway that shows it perfectly. Is it in my Photoshop Essentials? No, I know what that one is. It's not that. Oh, I wish I knew where that particular one was. I may have to go without it. I would have swore it was in here. Yeah, here it is. All right, I found it. All right, so you can visually see what's wrong with this photo. It's just weird. The perspective's off. It's tilted, it's crooked, it's leaning back. It's just all kinds of wrong. So what you could do with the crop tool is you switch to perspective crop. And what that will give you is if you drag out your crop first for the area you want. So let's say I want to get those steps in. Then you can pick up the corners and you can say, hey, straighten it based on that. Straighten it based on this. Straighten it based on that wall. And I'm kind of telling it, I want the stairs to be straight. I want those walls to be straight. So now when I click OK or commit, boom, straightens it and fixes the perspective. So perspective crop is great for situations just like that. Is there a schedule for your future presentation somewhere? Got to run. This has been great. John, unfortunately, no. I'm trying to do these now every Monday, 1 p.m. Pacific time. So I will be back on Monday for part 3, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And we try and keep it to an hour. But even if you miss it live, you can always watch the replay at youtube.com/Adobe Creative Cloud. All right, so those are your crop tools, crop and perspective crop. Don't worry about slicing. All right, next up, let's talk about the, I want to show that in a minute. Let's talk about the eyedropper. Okay, we'll use it on this one again. So the eyedropper tool versus any of that other stuff that's in here. Don't worry about anything else that's here. Just the eyedropper for now. That's the only one you need to worry about for now. All right, the eyedropper is simple. I want to use a color that's already in my image for something else. I want to set that to my foreground color. So let's say I want to type in this oranges, peach color, whatever that is. I just simply click and look, it made that my foreground color in the lower left corner. If I were to click somewhere else, boom, it makes the blue the foreground color. If I click on her hair, boom, that's the color. Click on the green. So it's great. It just lets me sample color. So if I click on that color and I say that now I can make some nice text, spring is in the air, and make that bigger, and make that thicker, and spring is in the air. Now the spring is in the air is that color. If I change my mind and I were to now click, I get an eyedropper. Even when I'm on the color picker, if I move outside the color picker, I get an eyedropper to use as well. So you can use the eyedropper just for that, for sampling colors. We'll get into way more color things as we go along, but that's what the eyedropper's for, and it is definitely one of the tools you're going to use. All right, now let's get into the retouching tools. You're going to use most of these. The two you're going to probably use the most are the spot healing brush and patch tool. Those are my two favorites. Those are the ones we're going to concentrate on today. So what's the spot healing brush, spot healing tool? What's that one for? Let me see if I got a good example. I'll go back to the lady that had paint on her blouse. not that one. The Bean Artist. Okay. So what this tool is for, it's like ContentAware on a brush. So ContentAware fill on a brush. So if I basically take the tool and say that I want to get, oh, hold on. Yeah, I'm on that layer. And let's make sure we don't have anything selected. There we go. I can basically use it and it will start removing this paint and using the surrounding skin to fill in areas where I'm painting. So I use this tool probably every time I do a retouch inside Photoshop, whether I'm retouching a person, landscape, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Speaking of landscapes, to show that this is not just for making blemishes go away, let's go to that one. And it's also great for getting stuff out of your landscapes, like this sign and like this. Now, when it's close to something else, that's when it gets dicey because it wants to use that something else to fill in. So if I get it too close to the pole, it's going to start trying to use the pole to fill in. So that's why you have to use it when it works best when the object is isolated. Now, there's nothing saying I can't fix that, but it just works best when the object is isolated. It doesn't take nearly as much work, but of course, and then we need to get rid of the shadow. Always, the dead giveaway is you leave the shadow behind so people know there was something there. You got to remember your CSI in your images. You're getting rid of stuff that you want to make sure that nobody knows it was there. So if it casts a shadow, you got to get rid of the shadow too. All right. So the spot healing brush tool I use pretty much every time I'm in Photoshop. It's probably of my top 10 used tools. So if I were trying to do something like this, get rid of that. Okay, got rid of the shadow. Now let's see if we can get rid of the pole itself. Boom. It is like magic. It is definitely one of my favorite tools of all time. Hello, Romania. How are you? How's Romania? How's the weather? You want to zoom in when you do it, so that way, I mean, I'm just playing around, but that way you can really see what you got rid of. But anyway, that is the spot healing brush. Now, we already saw what the patch tool does. The patch tool is for, it's like, okay, I look at it like the spot healing brush is like a paintbrush, and the patch tool is like a roller. Like I'm trying to get rid of big things all at once, or a big area all at once, and I'm trying to blend it quickly into something else. So if it's fine detail work, spot healing brush. If it's something big that's easily gotten rid of, then it's the patch tool. So for example, no one likes a cell tower in their neighborhood. So let's make the cell tower not be there. So we're just going to simply take the patch tool. You also don't need to go in and select every little pixel of it. You can go outside of it and get a nice liberal selection like I'm doing now. And then you're going to basically, as you can see, once I made that selection with the patch tool, and you can make your selection with any tool, by the way. So even if I go back to the lasso, deselect, Command D, PC Control D, and I make a selection with the lasso, it doesn't matter. You can then switch to the patch tool and the patch tool is ready to go. So you can use the patch tool no matter what you use to actually make the selection. You can make the selection with whatever favorite tool you want and use the patch tool to actually patch. So the way the patch tool works is it takes the selection that you have and you move it to an area that you want to pull in from. So I want to pull in either from the left or the right side of this. I'm just going to move it over, and it gives, what I love about the patch tool, it gives you that preview first so you can see if you're too high, too low. You're moving it in a stupid area, an area that's not so smart. You get to see what you're going to do first before you let go, and then it just does it. So then you can deselect, and I can say, oh, I can see a little bit left over, no problem. I'll fix those little leftovers by patching them separately. So the patch tool, spot healing brush, I use all the time, every day, just about any time I'm in Photoshop. They are definitely my favorites. Okay, next up, paintbrush. We only have a few minutes left. I'm not going to get into painting. There's not a lot that I would do with the paintbrush. These tools are useful. Paintbrush, pencil tool sometimes, and mixer brush tool, and even the color replacement brush. Those are all useful tools that we'll cover on another time. I only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to show you a couple quick tools. Let's do this one. Let's do, in our last few minutes, let's do the clone stamp brush, and we'll do sharpen. All right, we've been concentrating so far on getting rid of things. Well, what if you needed to add things or duplicate things that are already in the photo? Or from one photo to another photo, for that matter. Let me see if I've got a nice example of doing this. Let's see, she's got those brushes. Just looking for something quick and easy I can do. No, it's not. It's going to be dark foggy. Okay, we'll use this. Let's say that I want to make it look like in her right hand, she's holding another green brush. So what I can do is, and this typically you would do this in layers, so you always have the opportunity to go beyond it. To get rid of it or try it again. So I'm already on the clone stamp tool. I'm going to say that it's going to sample all layers, meaning not just the empty layer I created, but also the layer below it, meaning take from the layer below and put it on this new layer too. And then I'm going to zoom in. And now, in order to use the clone stamp tool, you have to give it a source to start from. So you give it a source by holding down the Option or Alt key, click, then it knows that's where it's going to pick up from. Then you can let go of those keys and start painting. So if I want to start from the base of the brush right here, hold down until I hold down the Option or Alt key, nothing happens. Nothing happens, just a circle. Holding down the Option or Alt key, click right on the brush, let go of the key. Now move to the area where I want that brush to be and start painting. I added too much finger, but you get the idea. So we're adding in another green brush in her hand that wasn't there in the first place. And it's okay that I added too much finger because that is now on its own layer, so I could always mask it or erase it. And I can now go to that layer and say, oops, she's not an alien with an extra finger. Now I can use the move tool. Remember we talked about the move tool earlier, and move that brush around because that brush is on its own layer. I need to get rid of some more finger, but you get the idea. All right, so now she's holding that extra brush that wasn't there in the first place, and like that. That's what the lasso's for. All right, last but not least, will I be doing a painting class for artists? Sid, Victoria's in the chat. Her YouTube channel is vp.tv or vptv.me. She is the Photoshop artist. She is the painter. I've had her on my streams before, but if you want to go learn painting, she's the best person to learn it from. I'm not a painter. So here, I'll put her YouTube in the chat just so you guys can have it. And you can go look at her tutorials for painting, and I'll bring her on as a guest at some point again. She's the one that does the painting. All right. Not me. I'm not good. All right. When it comes to painting, for sure. Last but not least, we're almost out of time. Let's do the sharpen thing real quick. And it's just one of my favorite tools for retouching. I need the rings. There we go. All right. So you have a situation where you've got jewelry, you've got eyes, you've got things that you just want to make pop. You want to make them look a little sharper. Now, this ring looks fine the way it is. There's nothing wrong with it, but I can enhance it using, blur, sharpen, and smudge. Blur and sharpen, I use a lot. I probably use sharpen 99% of the time, more than the other ones. So that's why it's on sharpen right now, but let me show you the difference. So I'm going to duplicate this layer. And I'm going to go ahead and sharpen the ring. Now, it won't look like I'm doing a lot. I'm going to also over sharpen it a bit so you can really tell the difference. It's just a paintbrush, so I'm just going to paint over the ring. The shiny parts, the part that have detail, the parts that are sticking up, the mount. All right. I can see a little difference, but wait till you see it before and after now. Before, it almost looks dull. After. Before, after. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. Before, after. Now that's over sharpening, but just to show you what that tool can do when you don't overdo it is great. All right, so let's not overdo it this time. Let me just do it the way I would normally do it. All right, let's duplicate it again and just simply go over it a couple times. That's about it. So again, before, after, before, after. And if you did that to all the jewelry in the scene, all the shiny things, all the things that should pop a person's eyes, things like that, just a little bit of sharpening goes a long way. All right, so that has been Back to the Basics Part 2, the tools you'll use the most. We didn't finish using the tools you'll use the most. We'll come back and maybe have to do a Part 2B or Part 3. We'll continue with tools. And then we'll get into something else. But that should get you through the weekend, at least until Monday. Monday I'll be back. Monday, that will be the 5th. At 1 p.m. Pacific time, we will continue with Part 3. So with that said, cheers everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye everybody. Have a great weekend.